Hello and welcome folks, my name is Fairytale and these are another 15 tips and tricks for DungeonDraft. You can use the wibbly wobbly line and shadow paths to create staircases out of practically everything. Place the wibbly wobbly lines to create steps and use the shadow path to create some additional depth. It gives you a lot of flexibility when creating staircases and lets you do all kinds of things that you wouldn't be able to do with objects or paths. If you're having a hard time to make something look random or natural, you can use the scatter tool to distribute random assets over your map. It works by making a selection of different assets by holding shift and left clicking on the assets that you want to select, after which you can click on the map where it places the assets and cycles through the selection you made randomly. You can use prefabs to speed up your map making process. You can create the prefabs from pieces you like in the maps that you make. They help you speed up the process significantly if you take the time to create a large collection. Just remind yourself to make a prefab from a piece that you like most in every map that you make, and over time you'll build up a collection. You can always, of course, download them from content creators that have a collection, like BaileyWiki for example. You can make an arched bridge by placing two half shadow paths on either side. You'll only need to make a smooth transition by placing a half shadow path, much thinner, on the other side of it, but it will immediately give the bridge the depth it needs and it makes your map look neat. A fellow mapmaker by the name of Moulk recently uploaded curved shadow paths for staircases. They can make shadowing your staircases, as explained in the tutorial video in the top right now, even easier than before. And it's also the best way to create an even distribution of shadows on the circular staircases. I'll link to the pack in the video description. You can use blue in your ambient lighting to convey the idea of night without darkening your maps too much. Just make it slightly darker and slide it a bit to the right on the blue color scale. It keeps your map readable, but it also gets the point across. Often, map makers use too intense shadows or make their maps too dark in general, but try to keep the use case in mind. One has to be able to read it, and it only obscures all your hard work. Try not to go below the halfway mark on the color panel. You can do more things than you might expect in the DungeonDraft settings. You can change the maximum amount of undos, or let your tools snip to half grid instead of whole grid units. But you can also see the useful keyboard shortcuts that can really help you speed up your map making. Not all of them are in there though. Did you know that you can hold shift while placing down a second point of a wall or path to create a nice even curve? Or that you can rotate lights by holding the left Alt button. You can also scroll through your assets by holding down the shift and scrolling while having an object selected. And lastly, you can hover with your mouse over a path or wall point and press backspace to delete it. If you know any more useful shortcuts that I haven't mentioned, drop them in the comments. Don't go too crazy on shadows, and definitely don't add lights when you intend your map to be used for a VTT. All those tools are often built in the virtual tabletop software, and placing them in the actual map can cause it to look bad when used. So always turn off lights during export, and if it's not too much of a hassle, remove all lights related to shadows that you've placed. It'll make your maps more popular and much easier to use. Don't be afraid to mix and combine furniture to create new interesting pieces. You can make bunk beds by placing one bed over another, offsetting it by a little bit and adding a ladder. In the same way you can make multi-layered shelves, or you can take an asset like a coal chute and add in a drawer and table to make it look like a desk. You can have these things as prefabs if you like, which will save you a lot of time when, for example, making a large barracks full of bunk beds in the future. In addition to the pillars I mentioned in my previous tips video, you can also often find objects that can be placed on top of walls to hide weird artifacting corners. Asset producers like the Forgotten Adventures, but also White Fox Works, have neat looking objects that you can place over the corners where walls intersect. You can make a smooth transition from a shadow pattern by adding a shadow path along the edge. This can be a bit finicky though, but it does look excellent to have walls fade out of sight when you have a negative space on your map. Never remove the last point of a path with backspace. It makes the program stutter and breaks the path tool. In some cases it might even cause a crash. Always try to select the path and delete it regularly if you want to have it removed from the map. You won't need this one often, but when an object is still too large at the 0.1 scale, you can place it down, select it, and reduce the size even further by dragging the corner boxes to the middle. The same also works for enlarging an asset beyond the object limit. Break symmetry. Don't make rooms that are too symmetrical if you need some life in it. If you need it to be symmetrical for reasons, try to add in some clutter to break it up, like with the barracks that you see here in the background. Breaking things up will make your map look that much more realistic and, well, in the end that's what we're aiming for. And that was it folks, those were the tips. I hope there are some useful ones for you in there. If you still have a few tips that you feel that I missed, please feel free to share them in the comments. Also, if you'd want to come and hang out with us, I recently fired up a Discord server. I'll be sure to link to the server in the description of this video. Currently it's still quite small, but we're slowly growing and I'm already quite satisfied with the activity that we have in there. We also have a 50 MB upload limit so that you can share all the maps that you make. And if for nothing else, it's still a nice place to hang out. Also, if the video was to your liking, please hit the like, favorite and subscribe button and ring the sub notification bell to stay up to date of all my content. And I hope to see you again in the next video.